Have you ever wanted to be a Barbie girl in a Barbie world? Well, yesterday we found out what that's like.
Yeah, so yesterday me and Isabella went down to the movie theater and we went to see the opening night of Barbie. Because we really want to do a fun little episode on that, and I guess that's what we're doing now. Well, let's just talk about what we were expecting going to the movie. Did you have any opinions?
I
Pre-notions?
expected it to be boring, to be honest. I didn't expect it to be that good. I just wanted to watch it because I like Greta Gerwig, but I didn't expect it to be very deep because the trailers didn't really give anything away. So I thought it was going to be a very surface level kids type of movie.
Hmm. Me too, honestly. I saw the trailer and I was like, okay, this looks cool. Like it was like very cinematic, and I trust Margot Robbie to like pop off and like the little Barbie moments. It was cute, but I didn't really see much of a plot. I don't know. I'm just very plot driven, so I was just like, oh, I feel like this movie's just gonna be just another movie where nothing really happens, and it kind of solely relies on like cinema to get through. But it actually wasn't. I actually enjoyed it a lot. Did you?
Yeah, I thought it was good. It definitely has parts that it could improve on. It's not perfect by any means, but it does stand for something, which is good.
Mm-hmm. I think I got started with some of the stuff I really liked. Oh, here's a spoiler warning. Wait, if anyone's watching, actually, we'll try not to spoil it. Are we spoiling it? We are
It's
spoiling it.
okay to spoil a little bit, just like
Spoil
a
a
surface
little.
level stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So at one point there is a dance scene between the Kens, and it comes up so abruptly, and you feel like it doesn't add anything to the plot, but it's just so good. And like in moments like that, you're like, wow, Greta Gerwig is a genius. So that's one of the moments I really liked. You want to name one?
I really liked the monologue by the mom, Gloria. I thought that was really powerful and kind of encompassed what they were trying to talk about the whole time. And that was like one part of the movie that wasn't like cringy. It was actually well written, that part. So I really liked
Yeah, I
that.
know. The monologue she's talking about is which kind of addresses the hypocrisy between how society treats women versus men, and it's so good. It's just almost everything we've been trying to say in our podcast in one like 30-second long monologue, and I recommend everyone to like look it up on YouTube or look it up on TikTok. I feel like everyone needs to see it at least once.
Like on that note, the movie was very like patriarchy focused. Like the whole conflict was focused around well, this is a spoiler, but you know what?
Yeah,
There's no way we can't talk about spoilers.
no way,
So the
no.
Kens basically find out, or Ryan Gosling finds out a bit about the patriarchy, and he thinks that men on horses rule the world, which is fair enough. So then he brings it back to Barbie Land and he goes, "Hey, the patriarchy, guys, Barbie isn't in charge of us." And it's like this whole 180 basically flips around the roles.
Because at the beginning, it's kind of like a what if gender roles were flipped, but it's actually flipped, and in Barbie Land, you see that like women are in Congress, women are like their presidents, they're winners, and then as soon as you see Ken bring patriarchy back to Barbie Land, it just goes back to like reality, and it's like, oh, that's really crazy how patriarchy can just exist so easily. But I really like how they were very like satirically commentating on it. Like it was just so obvious what the message was, but I feel like it still go over some people's heads, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I really loved how they were able to comment on patriarchy like that. And I saw, oh, I forgot his name, but that one politician that nobody likes, he was saying like, if you need to know anything about the Barbie movie, the word patriarchy is said like unironically 10 more than 10 times. So he was saying how that's like cringe. But I thought like they were clever with it, if you know what I mean.
I mean, I think it's a fair point. Like, I want to take the stance that sometimes when they kept repeating patriarchy, they were trying to be too woke in a way. Like, it was too on the nose for me personally. But I do understand the message they're trying to get across. It just felt almost like they think their audience wouldn't understand it if they didn't keep saying that. So that I had a little bit of an issue with. But overall, like, there's no
I think
problem
you
with it,
mean a lot
really.
of it is just like the showing, not telling kind of part of it. Like I really like the elements where
Mhm.
Ken was like doing patriarchal things, where he was seeing like he was like visualizing the stock market and like going up to people and asking for jobs, and they're like, "Oh, you're a man." This opposite. Like these little bits where they're like showing patriarchy. I really love that. But then the parts that he's just saying patriarchy, I'm like, that's not as impactful as like showing what actually happens in a patriarchal society.
Yeah,
So
like the part where they were mansplaining a movie to one of the Barbies too. It's just so real. Like I feel like it's something every woman has to go through. And also the joke's directed to moms as well. So they kind of have something for everybody.
oh yeah, the Barbie movie is definitely something for everyone. While we were in theaters, sometimes the movie would make a joke or like a reference, and we wouldn't really get it. We did not we didn't understand it. Went over our heads. But then like the men in the audience, the theater, would start laughing so loudly, and they'd be like cackling, but we wouldn't get it. And sometimes they make a very obvious like mom joke, and then all the moms start laughing like crazy. So there's something for everyone. There's no way you're gonna watch the movie and not laugh at something, you know?
The only thing is, it's not really for like little kids. I feel like a lot of little kids would get bored by the movie, other than the big, like, cinema, pretty production parts, because it's kind of hard for them to get their message across, like,
Mm-hmm.
to little kids.
Also, it's 100% not for kids. There's some like jokes in there, which I just, just not kid friendly jokes at all. But also, like I agree with what you're saying. Like the message, definitely, like you can relate to. Like if you've gone through some of the things they mentioned, and oh my god, they mentioned so many things that we're gonna be getting into. But for like young girls, of course, they might not have been exposed to that yet. Obviously, they probably have. If they didn't, they might not really notice it. And I think that's why they were really on the nose of the like, oh, patriarchy, 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 sexism, feminism, because they had to explain that to the young girls they were marketing towards. I think that might explain
Mhm.
some of it. But also, what you were saying about the beautiful production that the kids would like, I like that. The production was so good. You see the stat that was like the specific shade of like pink paint sold out for the set. It's
Oh,
noticeable,
yes.
and it was good. It did not go to waste. It was so beautiful. The shot work, the camera work was beautiful. The whole set was, even if you like hate feminism or whatever, watch the movie just for the set. It was amazing.
It gave very like Wizard of Oz feels, like especially when they were driving to the real world, and then Barbie
Oh
had
yeah.
like this little outfit on, and it had a very like playland type of feeling. It was very Wizard of Oz. I think they drew
And
inspiration
on
from
that
that.
too, like Barbie, the movie referenced a lot of other movies as well. Like, um, the scene where, this is not a spoiler, it's in the trailer, where the weird Barbie had like two shoes, and it's like, you learn the secrets of the universe or go back to your normal life, and they were like kind of very obviously ripping off like the little Matrix feeling, and she was like joking on it. She was like, "I'll just go back to my normal life." That was such a clever reference, and it was just so silly to see, and I loved it. And there's that other reference too, right?
Yeah, like the part they opened with all the kids, like little girls playing with baby dolls, and then Barbie shows up, towering above everybody else. That was from the Space Odyssey, which I thought was really interesting because normally with something like Barbie, you wouldn't expect them to reference so many classic movies, but they did. So I was really happy to see that.
And that really makes sense. Like Barbie's been around for a while. There's a lot of Barbie lore. There's a lot of Barbie history, so it makes sense for them to reference kind of that time span. Like yeah, the Barbie lore in it is crazy. There's so much you like just learn about the production of Barbie since like the 1950s. Like they show a bunch of like discontinued Barbies. They show a lot of Barbies that do exist, and they have like same outfits, same clothing. And it was pretty cool. All the discontinued Barbies were really really cool to see.
Oh yeah, I didn't know about any of them. Like, what was the growing up Skipper? The
Oh my
growing up
god,
Barbie? Like you pull her
you live
arm and
with
then your chest gets bigger.
that's
That was
insane.
I never seen that before. I was shocked.
Yeah, and then like just the one where they discontinued Midge, who's one of Barbie's friends, just because she was pregnant. That was seen as weird. Ooh, that kind of says a lot about what times were like back in the 1900s.
It made me feel a bit off too because she was kind of like a gag character, even though they are bringing awareness to it. It
Mm-hmm.
was a gag character. It wasn't like a centerpiece, which I'm okay with, but at the same time, it's like, oh, okay, she's there for laughs, type of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
I think there are a lot of little moments that were like really serious issues that were addressed kind of slightly. Like there's a scene where Barbie gets to the real world for the first time, and she's just roller skating down, and she gets catcalled, harassed, sexually assaulted. Even someone like gropes her, and they just kind of brush that off almost. Like I know she's the one that ends up getting arrested for punching the guy that assaulted her. And I really feel like that kind of catcalling and groping and like sexual harassment could have been addressed a little more. because that was touched on very briefly, in my opinion, when she went through something that could have been very traumatic.
And she doesn't realize what that is either, or like she can't recognize the feelings that she has when these things happen to her either. So it kind of shows when in her other world women are indefinitely empowered over men, that she doesn't have these type of empathetic feelings towards maybe what the men were feeling in that universe. It's kind of that symbol of equality that they show throughout the whole movie.
And the scenes where Ken just kind of realizes that he's instantly respected because he's a man in this real life world, that one hit really hard because I cannot imagine what it's like just to go outside and just have people respect me or respect any girl for their smarts or even just like to see them as humans. It's just something I know a lot of girls just don't have the access to. So I think that was something super clever that they also touched upon.
Hmm. And I definitely didn't expect Ken to be kind of the villain of the movie, even though he wasn't really the villain, but you know what I mean, right? Like he was battling against the Barbies or battling against the other Ken, the type of thing.
Oh my god, the Kens were all the actors were incredible. They all played their characters really well. Margot Robbie was a
Like
per-
Simulio, I love Simulio.
Isabel has a little bit of a crush on Simu. It's we're gonna put her on
Yeah,
blast
he
now.
he was the best Ken. Actually, I really like Ryan Gosling too. I like both of them
Ryan
a lot.
Gosling. Every interview you see of him behind the scenes talking about his role of Ken, you just understand why he is Ken. Like he was talking about how the only reason he took the role was he saw his like daughter's Ken like face down in the dirt or something, and he was like, his story must be told. That was so real, and I'm glad that he played Ken for that.
That is hilarious. He was amazing. He carried. It was very good.
And he was just so real. Like some
I
of the things
think
he
this
said,
might
so
be.
mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say like, he was did really good at playing the kind of role of just your typical man, the typical like kind of sexist, kind of condescending man, where he's like mansplaining to you. He's kind of being like bad to Barbie, but also something that was also addressed was in this like opposite patriarchal society, matriarchal society, I guess, in Barbie Dreamland. She was like also kind of like mean to Ken as well. So that was also kind of touched upon. But I don't know, it was a good little villain arc for Ryan Gosling. I enjoyed it.
I feel like it also kind of shows the root of toxic masculinity in a lot of cases because before that, he was very insecure. The only thing that he lived for was the gaze of Barbie. And it just goes to show that it's not really about gender, it's how we treat other genders. And it shows that the root of that, like behind all his macho ness, he's actually really insecure about himself and his role in the world. He doesn't really know who he is until he doesn't know who he is at the end of the movie either. It just comes to the conclusion that he has to find out. So,
I think I really like that ending for them instead of just saying like, well, Barbie and Ken fall in love like every other Barbie movie, but instead actually try to get them to be their own people and have their own identities. I think that was something new opposed to the other Barbie movies that have happened, and I really like that. I really like how they both became independent, not even just Barbie. I like how they were like, yeah, Ken needs to find his own thing too. So what you're saying about how like the little like gender equality bit, Alan personally was my favorite doll in the whole movie. Alan, played by Michael Cera, was just incredible. He just kind of was there to serve the purpose of showing like the sensible kind of person in the world, if you know what I mean.
Alan is the role model. Like Alan is who you want to act as because in the whole
Well,
movie, it's either the Barbies oppressing the Kens or the Kens oppressing the Barbies. So yeah, definitely Alan shows kind of the in between.
okay. Sorry guys, we had a little bit of technical difficulties. So we switched over to Zoom. But as we were saying, we were talking a little bit about Alan, who was this doll that was designed to be Ken's friend, and he was played by Michael Cera, who I love Michael Cera. He's incredible, and he was just incredible in the movie because, as I was saying, he was kind of there to represent that having either Barbies or Kens in charge is dumb, and both times these societies, someone was left out and someone wasn't feeling accepted. So he's there to kind of represent, like, hey, you guys are both dumb, and this should not be happening either way. So I think that's just a great addition to the movie.
So I think it'd be good to talk a little bit about the bad parts of Barbie now that we've talked a lot about what we liked. So I think the thing with the writing is it wasn't very consistent. The script writing, I hate to
Guys,
say
let's
it, but
pause for
it
a
was,
second. Guys, you guys need to know that Isabella is a drama kid, okay? So she is very passionate about script writing and scripts. So she has a lot to say about this. So listen up.
well, the thing is, it's just that the story was really bad. Like, I'm sorry, okay? Their themes, their characters, what they're trying to get across, I totally stand for. It was beautiful. There were some scenes that were really well directed, especially the one scene where Barbie goes to the real world and then she sees people who are sad, people who are happy, and she starts feeling these emotions. Beautiful scene. I wish they did more of that. So much of it was fluff. So much of it was just
Beautiful
like
fluff. Beautiful, beautiful fluff.
it was satirical, yes, but in such a way where it made me cringe a little. It wasn't as funny the second time type of feeling. There were a lot of loopholes. Like the whole theme of the story was Barbie learning about what being human means, but they only had that shown like twice when the whole movie, I think, should have been about that.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of noticed what you mean by like the plot and the writing was a little bit of lacking because you see, and what we talk about is the theme of feminism and sexism and how that shines in the real world. And that was done, in my opinion, excellently. But if you try to explain the plot, it goes something like Barbie is experiencing like bad things, and then she discovers she has to go to the real world and find this person experiencing those things to solve it. But then she finds that person, and then the plot suddenly changes. Now it's like Ken bringing the patriarchy back to Barbie land, and then it changes, and now it's Barbie trying to figure out if she wants to be human or not. And it's kind of like there wasn't one specific theme in the plot itself where you feel like you really follow along. So if you're more of the kind of like I need to see a clear story that doesn't fall apart once you explain it in simple words, it might not be the best movie, but I still think just the themes overshine it.
I feel like consistency makes a story strong, and they were really lacking of that. Like there were a lot of seeds planted in the beginning that should have came back at the end, but they didn't. It's like the writer forgot about that,
Hmm.
which really bothered me. But yeah, what you said is true though, because it really did redefine what Barbie means to young girls, and that I completely respect. It was just the script writing part was lacking.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, definitely the script writing, but you know what? It's Barbie. We can't really expect that much, can we? But oh my God, the one scene I just thought of this, I just completely forgot this. There's a scene for about a whole minute in the movie where it's a car chase, and it was just so clearly a Chevrolet ad. The whole time they just focus dead on the Chevrolet logo, and they have like scenes where it's a Chevrolet car being chased by other Chevrolet cars. And am I pronouncing Chevrolet right? I don't know. I'm probably gonna get attacked for this because I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't even know if it was a Chevrolet, but I'm pretty sure it was. And then there's part where she presses the button and the car goes super fast, and like she manages to escape people to the super fast car. And it was like, this is so clearly a car ad, but it was still funny enough.
Yeah, I was entertained by that at least. I
Ad
think
stuff.
something else we were talking about was like the cellulite comments too. Like one time is like, okay, yeah, Barbie thinks she's not pretty enough. And then they just keep mentioning, oh, my cellulite. Like the repetition, you're not repeating the thing that's important, you know?
And they never solve it. Barbie never realizes that like she's still pretty. It doesn't define her or anything like that. That's one of the things you mentioned. Like a lot of things they don't come back. So the beginning, there's a whole moment where she's freaking out because she has like two spots of cellulite on her thigh, and she has to risk her whole life to fix that because how can she ever live with cellulite, right? And I just feel like we were talking about this, that this is such a bad message that you're trying to send to young girls. We get that it's satirical and it's a commentary on how this is how a lot of women feel, that even these like minor things are like life changing, but still that kind of imagery you're giving to young girls that are probably developing cellulite for the first time made me cringe a little bit.
I mean, at least the movie did address some of the toxic things that Barbie has done in the past, like Barbie being this unrealistically thin girl. Like we were saying, we found out if a real person had Barbie's figure, then they would have to walk on all fours.
She was like about
Think
six
they
feet
did
tall,
address
11
that
pounds.
because when
Yeah.
she first met Sasha, Sasha was like, "Oh, you are a fascist and you are toxic for young women." And she goes, "Oh, Oh, I guess I am.
Yeah, there's a part
So,
where she's having like a breakdown because she's like, I'm not beautiful anymore. And then they make a joke out of this. So like Margot Robbie, you cannot cast Margot Robbie and then make a joke about her about not being beautiful enough. I just feel like it wasn't that executed, like the body image bits. And there's a part where she got self-conscious for the first time in the real world. I feel like that could have been discussed a bit more, especially since body image and self-consciousness is such like an epidemic in girls nowadays. Definitely should have been touched on more.
yeah, like the big flashy things, like dance sequences. Don't get me wrong, I loved it, but there was too much of it that it overshadowed what they were actually trying to send across. Like there was a lot of filler in the movie.
Mhm. And like the filler was good again, but it's just like that time could have been used to push something else. Unless the dance scenes had something like super thematic that we're just missing. Maybe we're just not smart enough to get it.
I'm just getting the Kenergy. That's all I'm getting. There's nothing else.
The Ken puns in this movie.
I am Kenough.
Okay, guys, watch the movie. Watch out for the scene where Ken is wearing a shirt which just says I am Kenough. I was losing it in the theater. It was so good. It was just executed good. Just the whole Ken being like a bimbo. Okay, let's talk about bimbonism now. We're getting into that. But the whole Ken being like a little beach guy, saying his job was beach. I liked it. I like this little character. But anyways, a topic that's been brought up a lot is how the Barbie movie was clearly based on bimbo feminism, which is something I had to read a lot before studying this because I didn't know what bimbo feminism was. Isabella, do you know what bimbo feminism was?
No, I only knew bimbo as the derogatory term that it's been used as. I didn't know it was a type of feminism. That was interesting.
But I think one of the core roots is being like the connection of you can still be super feminine, like Barbie is, all pink, all dolled up, and still criticize femininity and what it means. Like criticizing that you have to be feminine instead of other things like strong or like powerful. So I think that's kind of a thing that Barbie started to address because I read up that this wasn't really seen. Like you had like Legally Blonde, but bimbo feminism, like not that common. All like the powerful girl bosses you see in cinema, most directors are scared to make them super feminine, super pink like Barbie is. So I think this was kind of a step in that direction, saying you can be two things at once, like feminine and critical of feminism.
Oh yeah, 100%. But I think Greta Gerwig still got like a lot of criticism. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even though she is a very famous director, she's done a lot of great work for feminism. People still criticize her a lot for like specifically people of color and the representation in her movies. Like for Little Woman got absolutely tarnished. Like
I
it won
wasn't
awards, but it was talked
there.
about a
Okay.
lot for how there were no people of color. It was very focused around
Oh,
white
really?
people. Yeah.
I have not watched The Woman in so long. I did not even realize that was happening. Well, this movie did have, don't get us wrong, there were a lot of people of color. There were women of color who played Barbies, but they were still side characters. Well, and that is a step in the right direction, but we're not quite there yet. We read about this too. We found out that there were no women of color Barbies until 1968. And that wasn't even a Barbie. That was one of Barbie's friends named Christy, who was African American. And she still had like Eurocentric white features. And then it
Mhm.
wasn't until like 1980 where they had an actual Black Barbie or a Latina Barbie. And still at these points, they still had Eurocentric features and white features. So I think it was really good to know that there was in a lot of representation into Barbie until like the late 1900s, and Barbie's been around since like the mid 1900s too.
Like with the movie specifically, though, I think I'm okay with because Gloria and Sasha were people of color and they were represented really well. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's just that a lot of the people of color Barbies in the movie, specifically in Ken's, they were just used to push the plot forward for the mains, Ryan Gosling and Margot Robbie. But I don't think that's like a big issue. I think it's just more of a writing issue, in my opinion. Like they just did not write in any characters well.
And I get that like Margot Robbie is supposed to look as much as possible like the original Barbie, but then again, just having like the default, as she says, stereotypical Barbie be like this thin white blonde woman, and all the other Barbies who are people of color being like spin-offs and like different from the default. I feel like they still like intonations there and undertones that still kind of need to be addressed. But I do think, again, like you said, this movie was a step in the right direction. It just would have been nice to see some of these side characters that were people of color shine more than just helping, like you said, like Barbie, the main Ken get their issues solved out.
The movie is satirical, so
Mm-hmm.
it's okay. It's just like an overall, the movie's writing was weak. So I think that causes most of the problems. It wasn't really like they meant for it to be like that.
Oh, definitely. I don't think they meant for any of it. We're just saying like Barbie definitely has caused a lot of issues with younger girls. I think there was a study in 2016, where they had a couple girls from like the ages 6 to 8 up and they gave them dolls of different like body shapes, different sizes, whatever, different variety of dolls. And the girls who played with the thinner dolls like Barbie tended to have worse self-image issues. And this is addressed in the movie too, where Sasha was like, you cause so much body image issues for young girls everywhere that can't look like you. So I'm glad that was addressed. But again, a lot of people are saying the criticism of Barbie goes very back in history, where that criticism of being like the perfect thin body image has lasted for a long time.
I feel like because of those criticisms, that's why they had to address it so strongly in the movie. They did it in like a woke fashion where I was happy they addressed it, but they did it so on the nose that sometimes I'd cringe a little bit. Like I liked the self-awareness, and that's what people like. Like Madeline being the big bad
Villain.
guy,
Oh
that
my
was
God.
really fun. It's just that sometimes they were too woke, if that makes
I think
sense.
another criticism is they will bring up issues. They'll be like, oh, Metal doesn't have a woman CEO. They don't have any women in power. Or Barbie's caused a lot of self-image issues for young girls. And they'll bring that up. But then they'll never address it. You never see the Mattel CEO kind of realize, like, hey, maybe we need more women in power. Or they never see like the Barbie kind of like address like the images, the body images. Sasha never brings them up again. So I feel like some of these things just fell off a bit when they could have been used to make a really, really good point.
Yeah, they just wasted a lot of time in the movie where those seeds that they planted at the beginning could have definitely came back at the end.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that some of the fluff, as in like the dance scene and like the beach fight scene, could have been toned down a little bit?
I think so. Yeah. Mostly because like the thing when you're writing a plot, like what you say in the beginning has to come back in the end. There's never anything that somebody like the filmmaker will put in that's not intentional. So that was just an issue for me with the writing. Yeah.
One thing I just thought to mention was I think another kind of thing I noticed was the whole concept of weird Barbie and everyone calling her weird Barbie. I see that's very much like intra woman sexism that kind of goes on. You see a lot of internal misogyny within women too, and I feel like that kind of touched on it, where a lot of girls will make fun of other girls when that's really not the issue. You really gotta put your energy into something else because without the women's solidarity, without her help, without Weird Barbie's help, they would never have defeated like the evil Kens and the. So I feel like that also commentated on that a little bit.
That is some great insight because I feel like that's something a lot of girls have experienced too throughout their lives. So that's something that they didn't say directly, like it wasn't on the nose, but it was definitely a message that was in there. So that's a great
And I
point.
much prefer that than just canceling the word patriarchy. But again, guys, it was so good. There's just a little you see kind of how Ken's like attitude changes and how his like mannerisms change and how much more confident he gets, how he walks with his shoulders back. As soon as he realizes that he is treated better because he's a man, it's just like the subtle kind of behaviorism and like bigger behavioral changes. Just so real, so good. And I think that was written really well. So props to Ryan Gosling. That was that really great. Well, is that all our insights about the Barbie movie?
think, yeah, I think we've ranted for quite a while now.
So overall, we I think it's a good movie. I thought it was a good commentary on feminism and sexism in the real world and done in a really funny way. And I think that if everyone watched the movie, sexism would decrease by a little bit. I that's a bold prediction. I think it would help. And regardless, there are some things that we wish were done differently, with themes or with just like writing, as Isabella has very passionately told us.
Even though there are writing issues, it definitely spoke to me. And when we walked out of that theater, we could see it spoke to pretty much everybody there. Like everyone seemed like they enjoyed it and were pretty touched by it too.
Mm-hmm. So if you have time, go to your local theater, watch Barbie, wear pink, dress up, have a great time because we did.